That part didn't make it on the video. That's okay. That's just something for us. So some of you may remember when I was speaking last May, I said that I'd give you a talk on controlling, because it's really important to talk about what you know well. And I know a lot about trying to be in control, so I thought maybe I'd share a little bit of that with you guys today. You know, the benefit of wisdom, maybe you won't have to make all the painful discoveries I have. And really, what it comes down to for me is that from a little age, I always had those big, big questions in my eyes. Why are we here? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose? And I'm guessing that since you're all here, those questions have come up for you as well. So this is probably not unfamiliar territory. And I don't know that there is an answer, or that there's just one answer to the meaning of life. And what I've started to think is that it's actually the quest, the journey to explore that question that can be rich and powerful. And that's where we can focus our attention. It's not in the answer. It's in the question and what the question brings up for us. And that we each get to pick our own answer. And the answer changes as we change. For me, the last couple of years, and I think I may have shared this before, I've really focused in on the idea of kindness. To be, to see, and to feel kindness. Because if I'm able to do that, then that's how I can be lit within. That's how I can be love informed. And even though I've made that decision, and I make it again all the time, I still stumble. There are certain situations and even certain people that make it very easy to forget that my goal is to be kindness. And so what I've looked at is, why? And I think that within all of us, as we know through this teaching, we are this amazing combination of divinity and humanity. And our life is like a dance between those two. So there's that part of us that just feels love, that laughs, senses intuitively that oneness with all life. And then there's that other part of us, just as real, that has anger, feels pain, it suffers, there's doubt. Well, we are a paradoxical combination of both of those. And the trick to life, the answer to that question of finding meaning, is to find a way that works for each of us to balance those two of them. So we're not annihilating our humanity, we're not ignoring it, we're not suppressing it. We recognize and honor that that is us as well. And yet, we want to also cultivate and strengthen that light, that divinity that we are. So, hence the title of my talk, Controlling or Flowing? Because we're always juggling that ego's need to want to be in charge and to be right and to assert itself with that other part, that call within us to allow, to love, to be kind. And so, again, we go back to how do we harmonize them? Because what happens when they're out of harmony? Especially when we're full on into that control need. Well, as Andrew and I talked about this morning, life is a river. So do we want to be flowing in that river? Or do we want to be smashing up against each and every single boulder? Or even worse, do we want to be that tree branch jammed into the side, stuck? And so that life is like a chaotic swirl all around us. And we're getting beat up. We're getting battered. Because our ego, our need to control, creates resistance instead of flow. So here's the question, or a group of questions. When are those times? When are the times that we feel jammed up, like the tree branch? When is that feeling of doubt or overwhelm so huge? And when we feel those ways, What are we doing? How do we respond when that is getting kicked up inside of us? Are we trying to breathe in, explore? Well, that would be great. But what I've realized for me, definitely in the past and even today, is that that's when I revert to wanting to control. And it becomes this, I hate to use the word compulsive, but it is almost a knee-jerk reaction to want to organize life so that I don't have to feel ill-prepared or ill-equipped. I want to try to set things up so that I'm not putting myself up there and maybe getting rejected. I want to try to avoid pain. So, here's the fun part. When do we do that? When do we jump into that wanting to control? Well, one of the ways I looked at was our relationships. Because life is all about relationships, not only with ourselves. Brian's hiding right now. Brian's my fiance, for those of you that don't know. Well, you're safe right now, honey. We're going to go back into the past a little bit first. What I did realize is, just as within ourselves, there's a desire to balance, to harmonize those different aspects of ourselves. We also have that same thing going on in any relationship with someone else. It's like we're on a seesaw. So if somebody's like this, are we like this? And how do we bring that relationship into that same type of balance? Perfect example of this was my relationship with my mother's only sister, my Aunt Raynes. Now, Aunt Raynes was an amazing woman. She was spiritual and mystical before that became mainstream, and she was so vibrant and alive and literally captivated everybody who met her. And, I won't say but, and she was also a complete disaster. Holding down jobs, paying bills, living in a house, sustaining relationships. And what I realized was that any time the two of us were together for any period of time, I became even more of the drill sergeant part of myself, even more controlling, even more focused on the practicalities of being on time, being organized, getting things done. And all of those parts of me that were mystical, that was just driven completely underground. It was as if it didn't exist in me at all. And my mother commented on this, and she said, you know, you're more alike each other than you know. But whenever you get around each other, you polarize to opposite extremes. Her saying that had a huge impact on me, and I still think about that, even though this was 25 years ago. Because I had to realize that I was letting myself be shifted out of who I am. My own balance, my own center, I was allowing it to be dramatically impacted by another person. And I think we all face that. And so the call to us is to stay conscious, to stay present and aware, to check in at all times. Where are we? How's our own internal balance? How are we harmonizing? Here's the other way that I found that my need to control would flare up. Fear. And for me, and I'm betting I'm not alone in all of this, the place where that fear really kicked in the most was when I felt overcome by emotions. Specifically emotions that I didn't particularly want to be feeling. You know, sadness or anger or upset of any type. And I think that that's one of the things that in some way many of us do try to control. We try to isolate, shove aside, or dampen our emotions. And it's a way of ignoring them, putting them on the back burner so that Whatever they're trying to tell us, we're not ready to hear. Now, Mark Nepo, who is an amazing poet and author, he shared this thought. Too often, under the guise of being asked to be prepared and mature, we are seduced into watching over living, into naming over feeling, and into understanding over experiencing. And what he's saying is, if we can step away from whatever is going on within us, and when we're analyzing it, not so much in the sense to gain insight and clarity and healing, but as a way of removing ourselves from the reality that our human part of ourselves is going through that, we're stuffing. And stuffing is controlling. We're definitely the tree jammed into the riverbank at that point. And so, however we find ourselves doing that, whether it's being over-analytical or excessively practical, sometimes it's through manipulation. Maybe it's being excessively objective. It's all a way to resist. So, here's a thought. What if that was an opportunity to harmonize so that we turn that over to that other aspect of ourselves, that divinity within, and to trust that that is deep enough, it's rich enough and strong enough that it can hold those emotions. They won't annihilate us. They'll probably weather us, but that's what makes us interesting. And that's what gives us resilience, so that life doesn't break us, but instead we bend. And here's the other area where I noticed that I had more of a need to control rather than to flow. And that's when I felt unprepared or unknowledgeable. You know, those times of uncertainty where you know you are out of your depth. Because I think it's fair to say that life's pretty comfortable when we know what's going on, we know what's expected of us, and we trust our skill sets to get us through that. Well, that leads to complacency, doesn't it? There's no need to push. And what I thought was, complacency is really just a subtle form of control. And we're controlling a situation by letting it stay the same. So in a sense, it's stagnating. No risk. So Mark Nepo has another book that I'm reading right now called The Endless Practice. And in one of his sections, he talks about this idea of abandoning mastery. Lay down what you know well and what you do well. Well, think about that. Think about how doing something well, and I'm not talking here about communication or emotional intelligence or health, but the things that we start to let define us. I'm a master builder, I'm a master gardener, I'm a world-class skier, I'm a chef. That becomes our identity. Well, it's also an opportunity to just rest on our laurels, right? Again, we're not having to push ourselves. And so the opportunity, as Mark Nepo sees it, is to allow the heart and the soul to learn, to step back into that place of being a beginner. So we are looking with new eyes, we're seeing the world anew, and we're letting it present to us new opportunities that maybe we had never even considered. And so by laying down mastery, by laying down that need to control our conditions of life to such a degree that there's no hint of change, we can turn ourselves into more of a flow where we're open to letting the universe surprise us. And that's the question. Are we willing to sit in that place of discomfort, to step out of what's known and really explore what life can be for us. In my mind's eye, and Andrew, this kind of goes back to where we talked about life as a river. Well, to me, life is a cosmic river. When I envision, I don't know, if we want to call it God, spirituality, intelligence, essence, whatever our word for it, when I feel it in my heart, what I see is a cosmic river. Because really, we're all just stardust and atoms and that other little spark of something, the soul, consciousness, life. And I just see that as always flowing, just flowing. And that's where potential comes from. That's where creativity comes from. That's where form comes from. That's where we come from, because we are that, stepping into expression. And so when I can be in that place within myself, that is such an amazing feeling. It's so simultaneously peaceful and yet energizing to see. That, to me, that feeling is flow. And then there's that other piece of me where when I say, oh no, this way. Well, in a sense, what I've just done is pulled myself out of that cosmic flow, but also kind of assumed that I know better. And again, we come back to this balance of, yes, we want to be in a place of surrender. We want to allow life to surprise us with flow. And yet, no offense to my Aunt Rene, we also need to do so in a way where we are living a life that isn't about chaos because we can't manage the day-to-day realities. So that's where we blend that need for control with the need for flow, so that our human side supports our divine side. And so, I want to give you one final personal example of control. And without revealing any details, someone said to me this morning, you know, a year ago, I never imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing today. Well, the same goes. I can tell you that I never imagined that in my mid-40s, I'd be moving to Fallon to marry the man I love. In fact, I have been known to repeatedly say, I'm never getting married, and I'm never, ever going to move to Fallon. Yeah, I'd say never, but that's saying never. So try to avoid saying never. But you know what? I think you can tell. It's pretty delightful to have to eat my own words. And the only way that's happening is because I laid down needing to control what I thought my life should look like. Because my idea was pretty narrow. It was going along the path and it was fine. But I'll tell you what, this new path, this path of flowing and saying yes to what frankly can sometimes scare me, is pretty exciting. And I think that's the question. Are we willing, each of us, to be lit up within and to let that merging of our human and our divine show up and be what flows us forward? So I just invite you all to think about what that would look like for you. What is a way in which you can lay down that need to be in charge, to feel so safe you're not challenged, to be right, and to just open up to the idea that there is a richness unimagined awaiting when we let go of the boulder and flow into the river. So thank you all. Blessings. So the practitioners who would like to stand. And I would invite you to close your eyes if you choose and to just imagine that flow of infinite life in whatever way you choose. For me, it is imagining the swirling stars and cosmos, nebulas, planets, all of it, the infinity of space within and without, calling to us, beckoning, softly saying, let go. Be still and know that I am. I am love. I am light. I am possibility. And you are safe just as you are. So let go. Let life flow through you and as you. Feel your heart opening to a majesty unknown until now. To new dreams, to new vistas, to new ways of loving yourself and being in a loving relationship. Let the beauty of life surround you so that there is a soft shell within you of love and hope and promise. And there's an exquisite beauty surrounding you of all that is, the truth back of all appearance. And so I know for each of us that our first step into saying yes is to be so grateful for what we already have, for all of the richness and bounty within our lives, the freedom we experience, this beautiful country we live in, the stars at night, the beautiful warm sun, the friendships we have, the food we eat, the smiles that we share. All of this is life's abundant richness bestowed upon us. And in giving gratitude, we open ourselves up for so much more. So I say thank you, life. Thank you, love. And I invite you to affirm that with me by saying, and so it is.